Rosemary Seninde, Wakiso District Woman MP, also a member of the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, that's in the Ugandan chapter. You're most welcome, Honorable Seninde.
Thank you very much for hosting us this evening. My name is Rosemary Seninde. Good evening, listeners.
I'll take note of that, thank you. Honorable Mulongo, how far has Parliament gone in fighting corruption?
Well, thank you so much. The Parliament of Uganda, I hope you mean the 9th Parliament,
yes,
because to which I'm a member, has gone a long way. First of all, we have 3 major responsibilities. The first one is to represent our people. The second one is to legislate in terms of laws. The third one, and which has 2 in the third one, is we're supposed to oversee the government performance and holding it accountable. And in so doing, we first and foremost provide resources through appropriation. A budget is presented to Parliament, and we are the ones to authorize, in terms of appropriation, the various budget lines of the entire government. So for that matter, we have the interest on behalf of the population to ensure that the government, the executive in that case, is accountable to its expenditure and issues of governance. So when it comes to corruption, Parliament is so keen to see to it that there isn't corruption. We are corruption-free. And as such, if there are any cases that come before us in terms of corruption, Parliament will swing into action. First of all, we have the technical institution, that of the Inspector General of Government, that also undertakes investigations and tries to bring to book the culprits, but also have the Auditor General's Office that undertakes the audit of the financial and the value for money programs of government, and in their reports, either in special investigations or through annual reports, Parliament picks call from that to undertake its own additional investigation, relying on such facts, and makes decisions. So we do that through resolutions, and we compel the executive to ensure that they comply with our decisions. Now, there are 2 forms there. There is what we call advisory, but there's also mandatory, depending on the nature of the decision. However, bearing in mind the fact that the legislature is a very strong arm of government, we speak for the people. Our decision in terms of resolution is expected to be respected by the executive and therefore be complied with. So to that extent, many cases have come afore, and as you know, recall during the oil debate, we've had so many other issues to do with the Basajja Balawa, with the 165 billion shillings, 69 billion shillings, and so on, where Parliament has stood its grounds in terms of fighting corruption. And we're so determined, because this is not a matter of a party slogan, it's a matter of ethics and governance, to which we are supposed to be so firmly firm to, and we're very determined.
Is the battle won in your assessment?
Not exactly, because sometimes the executive doesn't actually walk the talk. There is more of the talk, for example, expressions like zero tolerance from the executive, but we don't see them actually walking that talk. So we think that Parliament is doing her part, and instead of getting a pat on the back for doing that, gets criticism, and sometimes we are abandoned to be seen like we have no consequences, and perhaps that's where the problem is going to grow much stronger from.
Honorable Seninde, what's your own assessment of Parliament's capabilities and progress in fighting corruption, the 9th Parliament specifically?
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the 9th Parliament, because when we talk about the issues of corruption and what has been happening in the country of late, you realize that actually a lot of things have been discovered. Parliament has talked about them, and we have made our country aware about these losses. My brother has pointed out most of the issues, but what I want to say is that much as we are trying our level best, we are definitely playing our part as Parliament. It is very sad, though, that we are not reaching where we want to reach, because we do the talking in Parliament, but we are not the implementers. So when we resolve certain issues, when we come up with resolutions, it is upon the executive to implement. But when the executive does not implement, then we are let down. And Ugandans are let down too. But of course, me as Seninde, I want to probably say the word corruption is a light word, is a light term, according to me, and according to the gravity.
What do you want to call it?
I want to call it thievery of the highest order.
Yes.
Because when you look at how much money has been lost in these so-called corruption tendencies, to me, this is thuggery. Because one of the things that hurt me so much as a woman, as a mother, and as a leader, seeing a woman dying in the compound of a hospital, simply because the medical work is not motivated, simply because there are no facilities in the hospital, simply because of this and that, just because other people, individuals, not the government, but individuals within the government, have eaten the money, have filled their stomachs, and this woman has to lose life. It hurts me, and that is why I'm so passionate about these issues of corruption, of thuggery in so-called. So I want to thank my dear colleagues, members of parliament, for what we are trying to do. But of course I want to still appeal to them. We are in government. I'm an NRM MP, and I love my party. I love my party because it is the party I have joined ever since I joined politics. And I don't have any intentions of leaving my party. But at the same time, I can't condone bad acts. I cannot support things I think are hurting my people, the people I represent. Because I'm in parliament to talk for them. I'm in parliament to talk on their behalf. Therefore, I cannot be, someone cannot put a zip on my mouth to stop condoning and talking about things that I know are not in my mandate. My mandate is to go and fight and talk for the people I represent. But if someone wants me to keep quiet about things that I know are affecting the development and service delivery in my constituency, in the country, then I think I'm not doing my part as a legislator. So that is why my colleagues and I have all come out to say no. Corruption does not eliminate parties. When people eat their money, they don't hurt NRM people or they don't hurt opposition members in the country. They hurt all of us. Because if there is lack of service delivery, and yet we know the money that is given to people like Masagarala, money eaten in the identical deals, that money would have helped Ugandans. Because now I can tell you, Parliament has passed a resolution to give more money to work on these IDs. Now we are going to give more money, and if the money that would have done the job has been eaten, now the money we are going to replace for that would have done something else in this country. So these are some of the issues that hurt me so much. And I must say this to all people who are listening to us, especially those people from my party, the NRM. Anyone who condones legislators who are talking against corruption and you call them rebels, then you are the worst enemies of the party. Why do the members of NRM want to praise the opposition, or why do they want to hear the opposition condemn the bad acts when you can also talk about them? And of course, I want to tell listeners that it is not NRM which is bad. It is the individuals. And those are the individuals we are condemning and talking about. So we need to differentiate these things. It is not about being a rebel to your party, but it is about being honest. If you have to be a good leader, you must be honest. If you want a leader who is not honest, then you want a leader who just keeps quiet and condones bad acts. But if you want an honest person, like the Bible says, an honest leader, a trustworthy leader, I know we cannot be 100%, but we need to try to be what the people who elected us expect of us. What are we showing to the next generation? If corruption takes the day, if corruption is what we should condone, then what is the next generation going to do?
Well, talking about next generation, the last parliament you had 2 rebel MPs. I'm borrowing that word. This time I don't know how many, maybe 80, maybe 100.
And let me tell you,
ballooned. I don't know what
tell you, my dear, we are not rebels. We are not rebels. And I feel so touched. I feel so hurt when I hear people calling us rebels.
Oh, you can be a rebel with a cause.
Let me tell you, we are rebelling against bad things that are disorganizing our party. Bad acts of corruption. Corruption has become a cancer. Should we leave the cancer to eat up the entire thing? We need to talk about it. We need to find solutions to this. Like my brother has said, like you have clearly said, if there is no political will, then where is the medicine going to come from? That means we are all going to die, because everybody is going to look at me, the Seninde, as an NRM, as an evil. Because everybody will say all NRM people are evils. They're all thieves. We are not all thieves. They are individuals, and those are the ones we are talking about. And I will talk. We shall continue talking until we get a medicine to this cancer.
Somebody has said one bad tomato will, be spoil the other tomatoes. Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, NRM Mps tell the executive to stop protecting the corrupt. Is this possible in a situation where Parliament is fused with the executive?
And by the way, it is very, very clear, it was made very clear in our manifesto, the NRM manifesto. We are fighting corruption. We have zero tolerance to corruption. It is categorically stated in our manifesto. Now, if I'm an NRM and I talk about against corruption, then what's wrong with it? I think a person who supports the manifesto is a person who should be praised. In the 10-point program, point number 7, principle number 7, is fighting corruption. We are changing the term corruption to thuggery. These are thugs.
Interesting. Our guest tonight, Honorable Simon Mulongo, Bubulo East MP, Vice Chairman of the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament. Honorable Rosemary Seninde, Wakiso District Woman MP, also a member of the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, the Ugandan chapter. You will be able to contribute to this discussion at some stage. Honorable Mulongo, the zero tolerance against corruption and then the corruption that we see in practice. The spirit is willing, the body is weak. Where is the disconnect?
I think the disconnect comes with the lack of the political will on the side of some members of the executive to ensure that they implement the policy of zero tolerance against corruption. And this is caused by two things. One, either the morality in terms of levels in those individuals are questionable and therefore they are compromised. And the other one is actually politicization of corruption itself by not isolating the crime from the politics, and therefore you go for protecting an individual on political grounds other than isolating the case of crime in the corruption tendency itself. And I think both of these and others could be at the center, at the core of this confusion. And so I think the disconnect comes in the form of trying to politicize, and also people do not have the moral grounds to just fight it. And to me, these are very critical. If you're going to fight corruption, you must stand out to start with oneself, to say, I'm not corrupt. For example, myself, I can speak with my head high. I was a prefect in my schools. I headed resources. I managed the library. I was in charge of a number of things, and nothing got lost because of corruption at various levels. I've worked through many offices in the government. President's office, I've been an RDC, I've been in the President's office at the headquarters, I've worked with the UN and AU offices, I've been a regional director recently of the African Standby Forces based in Nairobi, and has never been a single query about my morals and tendencies about corruption or unexplained losses of funds. And I challenge anybody out there to say that when you're in P7 you're corrupt, and let him or her bring that afore. So we need people who can stand up and say, I'm clean and I can fight for cleanliness, and if I'm wrong, I cannot do that wrong again, because in the Bible Jesus said,
sin and go and sin no more.
You've sinned, but because of your faith you stand forgiven, but never go. And we would like to say that, because you don't have your nature to be incorruptible, but you can actually say no to it and live a changed life. So I think the problem is around the individuals and then the politics. Then the other one, of course, institutional setup. We have very solid, firm institutional and legal frameworks in this country about corruption. We have the most populous numbers of institutional arrangements that are supposed to fight corruption. Police, IGG, anti-corruption court, name them. In fact, there are many more in this country than any other country you can talk of, perhaps in the whole world. But here we are. Why are we having the index of corruption in Uganda rising year after year? That means that there is something wrong somewhere, and to me, it's lack of the will to fight corruption. Now, the other aspect is the fusion that you mentioned between the executive and the legislature, because the front bench, the executive, are members of parliament, or if they're nominated, they are actually sworn in to become members of parliament. And so, when do you actually bisect the difference between the executive interests and parliamentary interests? If parliament is supposed to fight the oversight in terms of oversight, the accountability-related issues, corruption-related issues, governance-related issues, standards, and so on. And yet, the executive are part and parcel of that parliament. You can see what that means. That some members of parliament may be subdued, may be induced, may be actually made to be compromised because they are not as free and as independent as they may be or may want because of the heavy presence of the executive. And if people are clapping or maybe they're tramping their seats in support of something, and you find the front bench looking at the back, casting the eyes to see who is this trying to support that. You know, it works on the psychology of some of the MPs. And unless you are very courageous, you can do it. So I think that's another issue. The constitution in Kenya, which is heavily copied from some other countries, separates the parliament from the executive. And from next year, March, when they go into elections, their members of parliament will never join the executive unless they resign their parliamentary seats. I think that's quite a good example where perhaps we can consider in future where Uganda can move on so that the parliament...
Ministers should not sit in parliament.
No, they don't sit in parliament. Actually, the interface in Kenya, they are not going to interface with the parliament except the chairpersons of sectoral committees and also will be interacting with the ministers. And I think this is a very good check.
Is that something you plan to do?
I think, in my view, this is something we should move towards too in future, because really, to me, we must have parliament exercise its sovereignty independently.
Honorable Nansuga, talk to us about this corruption, the word that you hate to. Tell us a few good things about it. Some people think it helps us create a middle class. What's the argument these people have when they steal public money?
You know what is so surprising is that I think we lack the morals. And I think we are not helping this country, even right from the homes. Take an example. A parent tells a child, I'll give you sweets if you clean your room.
Yes, that's corruption.
Isn't that corruption? You are teaching the child that before you get something, or if you do something, you'll have to get this.
Yes.
So the child grows up with that. Not to do something good until something is given. There is a payment. You go to schools where our children go to campaign for these offices, head girl, prefect. It used not to happen during our time.
It's ridiculous.
But today, children print posters. You find posters all over the school. But these children, parents help these children to buy boxes of sweets, boxes of biscuits, boxes of what? To take and give and bribe their colleagues in order to get these positions. So we are training corruption right from the home. And this is very absurd.
How do you begin to break the cycle from the top?
I think what we need to do, first of all, I'm a Christian, a believer, very strong believer. I think we need to pray for this country. We need to call upon God to help us realize the dangers we are putting in our generation.
Talk to these men in the night as they sleep, in their dreams.
Well, I think God has to help us. And not only
Send
that,
an angel wearing
not only that, I think we need to talk about against these issues and let the country realize, and let Ugandans also realize. Let us show them the bad things that we are happening because of corruption. Because honestly, it hurts so much to see that there are families which go without food, and yet there are families which are stealing money, and somebody goes with 10 or how many billions. Yesterday when we were in Parliament, I'm sorry to say this, one of the members told me, but you people, why do you keep on, saying these people should be thrown out of their offices, should be interdicted? Don't you think they have families? I could not believe.
It's a bread and butter.
I'm sorry, I could not believe. If a legislator can say that, then there is a problem. How do you sympathize with this man who knowingly, who takes this money, billions and billions of shillings, 200 billion involved in one deal? They share the money, and you don't have the heart for the people you represent who sleep hungry, who cannot afford to find means to go to a health facility. I think that is very absurd. So I want us to realize, to know, especially starting from us leaders, we need to help sensitize the public. We need to talk about these issues and let the public know that unless we talk against these things and our leaders get to realize that this is a danger to to the community and to our country. I think that's the only. If we don't do that, we are doomed.
All right, listeners.
So we need to talk. We need to talk and act.
And also pray.
My brother has, and also pray. My brother has talked about the difference. We talk something, but we act differently.
Yeah, I mean, like some members of parliament are part of committees, and then they disown these reports.
And not only disowning, one would ask, yes, we are in the 9th parliament. We talk about this, we talked about Basaja Balaba, we talk about this.
Yes.
Tomorrow we are called in the caucus and we come up with a different voice.
Well, let's go for a break. We'll be back. Honorable Seninde, we'll take it from there. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, talking about corruption. We'll be back. To stay tuned.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Abaganda abaluli abanyangola abateso muzina amazina tweyagane nga tujagusa myaka 5 bedunga tetuli baddu so unbelievable naye ate nga byaddala tekibadde ize yadde n'akamu bendera waggulu bulaka tuli beautiful yero wakasana kafenga kasufu ready brotherhood eyatero bwetugatta
Tuchakale with Airtel today and celebrate 50 years of independence. Get up to 100% bonus to call across all networks. That's not all. Stand a chance to win a motorbike daily and a car every week. Simply top up every day. Get up to 100% bonus. Dial *162#. Press yes or OK. Start the 50 years independence celebration of Uganda today with Tuchakale from Airtel.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special.
You've earned it. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, NRM Mps tell the executive to stop protecting the corrupt. Is this possible in a situation where Parliament is fused with the executive? Our guests tonight, Honorable Simon Mulongo, Bubulo East MP, also Vice Chairman of the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament, Honorable Rosemary Seninde, Wakiso District Woman MP, also a member of the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, the Uganda chapter. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Honorable Seninde, you belong to this group saying the president's powers should be trimmed. Why do you want to trim our beloved president's powers?
Now, let me give an example. The president, definitely, I've not come with my constitution probably to read verbatim the provisions.
Yes.
But we know very well that in the constitution, the president has the mandate to appoint the IGG. He has the mandate to appoint these people. I think the Auditor General,
Inspector General of Police.
You know, the Inspector General of Police. Now the question is,
he's like a king.
He's the king. Now, I think what we want to do, according to me, my opinion, is we need to have something like a commission which does the appointments. And approval is by Parliament, but not the president. Because now they have to, to be
subservient to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beholden to him.
Absolutely. They will not be able to do their work the way it's supposed to be done. But they will have to listen and go by what he wants to be done, which I think is wrong.
So you want a commission to appoint all these key appointments?
Anyway, we are coming up with an anti-corruption amendment bill.
Yes.
And of course, I'm one of the people who are going to second this bill.
Yes.
And we want to come up with amendments to quite a number of things. We want to propose a number of things in this bill.
Yes.
At the same time, we also want to probably come up with the private members' bills.
Yes.
To amend the constitution.
To remove powers from the president.
Absolutely, to reduce. We can't remove, so definitely.
Well, you remove some.
But we remove some, especially those ones which can help us fight corruption. Because I think if we don't,
you want him to go to court For instance, you want
no,
to
we may
move
not say that. We don't want to be extremists.
Yes.
We don't want to go to extremes.
Right.
But we want to help the country. And who should help the country if we don't do it now, really? I don't want to be part of the group that will be blamed by the next generation. I want to be my contribution to be seen because I'm in leadership. The people of Wakiso have given me the mandate to help them. And what should we do? Now, I want to condemn
protecting the corrupt. You go into caucuses when you come out, you say this one is a clean man.
That is the problem. That is the problem, and that is why people like me and other few members are being looked at as rebels.
Maybe you have few cadres. You can't replace these thieves.
My dear, you know it's very sad, and I want to call
They are hardworking
I
thieves.
want
They
to call
deliver and they
upon-
pay themselves
But
in
you
billions.
In Uganda, we have a saying that where a bull grows, it does not mean it grows
the
only
only bull.
one. It's the only
Are
bull.
you sure about
No.
You think you have other bulls in the NRM? You sure?
So many. This country has got over 30 million people. You think in this country there are no people who can do a good
And you
job?
think there's another bull in the NRM?
There are so many who can do a good job. I love my president, and I still want him to serve this country, probably for life.
Right. Oh.
But yes, I must be honest.
Hold on, let's talk about something.
Listen.
Pro-life.
But what I'm saying,
We've only had one life president.
we need
I
to
don't
be
know how we
honest
ended
to
up.
ourselves, and we need to be honest to this country. If my president is to serve this country as
For life.
well as he has done, we want him to complete his service.
How many years
with
do you
a
want
lot
him
of
to have?
credits. I'm not God. It is upon God.
You want him to rule for life?
But what I'm saying, I have appreciated his service.
Okay.
I think he has done a good job, more than any other presidents.
All
But
right.
at the
That's
same
very
time,
true.
I want him to realize, and I want all our people to realize, me inclusive, to realize that Uganda can have other people. If somebody is found in corruption tendencies,
Set him aside.
why do you change him and take him to another ministry?
He might have repented.
Why do you promote him? That is what my brother Simon has said, that there is no political will. That is where the challenge is.
Let's talk about this ID project, Honorable Mulongo. Talk to us about this ID project. What exactly happened? 200 billion shillings at stake. Now they say forgive these men, but you have a difficult heart. You refuse to forgive these thieves. Why don't you forgive sinners?
First of all, the ID project, it's not just an ID project. It's the National Security Information System project. NSIS, meaning that we have to have a project of a data bank with interconnectivity to various departments and offices of key state machinery to ensure that data on individuals and activities of this country are stocked or stored at one stop point called the Central Data Bank. Now, that information system has many byproducts, some of which are information on economic performance, some issues to do with income tax, some issues to do with the crime, for example. If you have been committed to police and you record a statement, the particulars of such a suspect are supposed to be entered into the data bank, so that if you committed in Kamale and after 10 years you commit another crime in Kidebo, they should be able to say, but in Kamale this year you did this, how did you escape this, and so on and so forth. At the same time, it's supposed to have a facility for issuing national IDs to the citizens. So really issues of births and marriages, deaths and births and all these are supposed to be stored in the National Information System Central Data Bank. So, but of course we popularly talk about the national ID because that is one of the initial products we're supposed to enjoy as a country. Now, over time, there was a problem of having a company to clean up the voters register and have a clean, reliable electoral commission process. And because of that, competing interests here and there and corruption tendencies, actually we never managed to have one. So in the end, a certain gentleman called Joseph Molbauer,
yes,
was recommended to the president by the German ambassador, and who said for him he has equipment that manufactures the entire system. It's not a middle person. And that's how he came on the scene. And this was 2010. So 2-3 years down the road, the president launched the issuance of national IDs last year in May. Last year, but one in May, And we expected the IDs to be churned out to the entire population, having had them registered properly and cross-check in terms of their citizenship with this country. But there's no proper IDs issued out, except for a pilot project of 409 IDs, which were issued to some parliamentarians as a pilot project. Now, so the questions arose to Parliament. How come that a 200 billion project with equipment having been delivered in this country, there are no IDs issued to the population? No activities or an exercise to...
The money was paid?
People. Money was...
The man recommended by the president?
Yes. Won the tender, and competitively, he never competed with anybody else. The president issued a directive to the Minister for Internal Affairs to coordinate this project, and directed that two things happen: that they can issue a contract to this gentleman as long as they can do some due diligence in other countries where he has performed, and also look at wherever he has worked to see whether that complies with Uganda's needs. Secondly, that they obtain comparative prices of this system elsewhere, so that the value of this equipment and system is for money, according to Uganda.
Right.
Now, the Minister for Internal Affairs then, the third Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Kizito, did none of the two. He never went out to obtain comparative prices, and he also never undertook due diligence.
Or he didn't carry out the assignment? Maybe good back pay.
Well, the assignment was carried out focusing only on the Mulbawa and not to obtain comparative information about this company. And two, they never consulted the PPDA, or if they did consult the PPDA, they declined to follow the PPDA laws, because the PPDA insisted that they must go competitive, or if that waive, then there must be special provision to be invoked to provide for what they wanted. They decided instead to circumvent the PPDA and contracted this company irrespective of the PPDA, and this definitely was part of our investigation. So we never investigated the funding, the finances, but we investigated the procurement process, and we found that large and by this project was full of corruption, the sense of political leadership, used influence peddling, and circumvented the PPDA laws. And yet up to now, we don't have the IDs being issued. There's no exercise at all being carried out to register the population for the same. And the equipment is idle in Entebbe, gathering dust, and maybe even the warranties are running out. They will be expired. And moreover, something else. The method used to source this equipment was very expensive, because they resorted to borrowing from Bank of Uganda, which actually led to over 3 billion shillings being paid in terms of interest Bank of Uganda. And also the scheme for repayment for this, they paid 30 million euros upfront, and the balance 41, about 42 million euros was supposed to be paid over 24-year period.
24 years or
24 months period in quarterly terms. And the penalty was that if you delay to pay, then you have to suffer a 1.5% interest earnable on the balance.
Yes.
And to that end, we have over $7 billion to pay. And as if that's not enough, the taxes were supposed to be paid by this company. In the agreement, the government agreed to take over the payment of that taxes. So the total amount of taxes not paid by, supposed to be paid by government, but now paid by the government, in other words, the Ministry of Finance from the Treasury pays to its Ministry of Finance to ERA 30 billion shillings. In total, 49.5 billion shillings actually was lost.
So maybe I'll ask you to stop there. We don't have a sink in this place, and my stomach is beginning to...
I can understand.
Seninde, talk to us very briefly about this before we hear from the listeners. Some of the things that this report mentions, new names being brought up. We knew about Chivejinya and the other two men. Talk to us about other new names. Honorable Simon.
There is Honorable, the former MP, Nsambu, Honorable Nsambu.
He was the former Minister,
the former Minister of ICT, former Minister of State for ICT. Then there is this gentleman, the PS.
The PS, Stephen
Kagoda. So I think those are some of the people that we...
But some names that have been coming. Honorable Saida Bumba, has she been mentioned? Do you have other names?
Also Honorable Chiduma Kubi at some point.
Chiduma, his name is coming back.
Was talked about. But it's very, very sad. Anyway,
there's
my
also
brother...
Mr. Nabongo, who is a communications officer with Uganda Bureau of Standards, who was the secretary to the project.
Okay, I guess at this stage we'll hear...
Actually, it's a relatively long list.
It's a long list.
But anyway, to wind it all up, my brother has said it all. One thing I want to tell Ugandans, when you calculate and add up all the monies that have been lost in various deals, you realize that this country is a very, very rich country. If all this money was being put to the right use, I'm telling you, we would be very far. Our Ugandans would not even be suffering and talking about lack of service delivery. So
well, of course, on top of our incompetence, even if we did steal the money, there's still incompetence to deal with, but we make it worse. Adding salt to the wound, we steal the money, even though we know we have a lot of performance loss. Let's hear from you, dear listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. NRM Mps tell the executive to stop protecting the corrupt. Is this possible? In a situation where the Parliament is fused with the executive, our numbers 0414-348-111, 0312-260390, 0312-261390. When you call it, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Also move some distance from your radio. Spectrum, hello? Good evening, sir. Your name?
My name is Bubulo. I'm calling from my brother. First of all, I want to thank Seninde.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Ware. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Your name again?
My name is Wakiso.
Yes, Peter.
Edmond, I did...
Hello. Good evening. Your name? Yes. Hello. Yes, sir, your name? Yes, Linus. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good.
Thank you for bringing the
Your name, my friend?
I have a lot of respect.
Your name, again, your name?
Oh, sorry, my name is Paul.
Yes, Paul. All right. Spectrum, hello. Good evening, sir. Your name? All right, our final caller, Spectrum, hello. Yes, sir, your name?
Peter from Entebbe.
Yes, Peter in Entebbe. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get back to the studio. Honorable Rosemary.
Well, I want to thank the listeners because I believe many are listening. First of all, Honorable Mr. Church Ambrose has asked how I felt when the president went to Rengo to support Nsambo.
Yes.
Well, I think I must say that the president, as the chairman of the NRM party, had the right to go and support the candidate of the party. So I don't think the president did any wrong. But it's unfortunate that...
Maybe let's talk about the choice of individual.
The problem is the choice that NRM had put in place to stand for this position was probably a wrong choice. That is where the problem is. But I think as the president and as the chairman of the party, he had the right to do it.
Even though the man lost in the
Even though the man lost, although he had so many individual problems. Now, we've talked about corruption. Is it because they didn't... somebody, I didn't capture the name, but somebody said, he was, I think, number 4. He said, we are talking about corruption.
You're lamenting because you're not clean enough.
That is because we didn't eat. Honestly, my dear listeners,
at the table.
I'm really, really surprised if we have Ugandans who can talk like that. Because somebody asking such a question, is he trying to, to discourage people who would want to talk against such issues?
Okay.
How do you even think of that? Yes, I would believe that we are not all 100%. Nobody on this earth is 100%.
All have sinned.
We have all sinned probably in one way or the other.
But maybe in other places.
But are we supposed to condone such things?
Behaving
really?
Like rats in the ground.
Somebody steals a chicken. He's taken to prison for 6 years. And somebody
know how to steal.
And somebody taking billions and billions of shillings. And you don't want to talk about it because you think we are talking because we've not eaten? I think that's not right. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I think it's not right for the gentleman who asked this kind of question. Now, somebody also asked the question that, and I think this came directly to me, that corruption, that I decampaigned a member of my party. Does that mean I support NRM? Dear friends, I think when we go for elections, there is democracy. One has to support whatever he wants.
Freedom of conscience.
Freedom of conscience. As an individual, much as Nsambu was the candidate, I think he's talking about the recent election.
Yes.
If Nsambu was the candidate of NRM, and to me, in my conscience, I believe he's not the right candidate. I did not support Nsubuga. First of all, I don't vote from there. I did not support Nsubuga. I did not support any other. But I did
you
not
simply
support.
Said no.
I did. To me, I thought it was not right.
She planned other things.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very, very unfortunate. But maybe other questions my colleague can.
All right. Because of the time, we would like
because of the time.
Let's have Honorable Mulongo talk.
Thank you so much. I think members collectively say they want as Parliament to stand firm to fight corruption, and to which I said yes, we must fight corruption. Our role as Parliament is not only to expose, but also hold the executive accountable to its action in terms of corruption tendencies. We are not acting actors in the sense of implementing decisions to the letter, because the role is with the executive, and we expect the executive morally and responsible in terms of governance to make sure they implement our resolutions to the letter, if we're to talk the same language as a party in power. Then the other thing is, are MPs clean? Well, we're not angels, but our role is to do exactly what we're doing. If anybody has a case against an MP, they just bring it up. I've said, here I am, Simon Mulongo. You come up and say, Mulongo, you're corrupt. There's this case of money, this of fraudulence and so on. Bring it up with evidence, and indeed you will have skin in my head off. But before that, do not say so, because for us, we're also not witch hunting any minister or permanent secretary or member of the executive for nothing. But we're going after cases which have evidence backed by either the IGG investigation or a machinery which is within the law, like the Office of the Auditor General. We're only just coming up with flimsy cases against them. And then let's not really say because MPs are NRM, when they speak against corruption, then they're anti-NRM. If we go this path, then we're lost. We must know that NRM stands for the principle of clean leadership, transparency, accountability, including zero tolerance to corruption. If there is any ineptness on the part of the executive to implement, that's another matter altogether. But we must know we speak for the voice of NRM, because the majority of the members of the House are NRM members. And let not be mistaken, NRM is the one fighting corruption in the form of the majority parliamentarians who are actually NRM. Yes.
And the ones who are stealing?
And the ones who are stealing are some few members of NRM who are actually the ones who are the rebels, because they are rebelling, as my friend did say, they are rebelling against the culture norms or the postulates of NRM. And we shall fight them to the end. We're not going to fear about that.
You're going to fight them?
Yes.
With their billions?
With their billions and fight them. It is not about money. Morality can fight higher than any money you can ever talk of, or material resources.
A man in Lamido Sanusi was bribed with $15 million. He's a Nigerian man.
Well, but
he turned it down. They brought $15 million in cash in about 6 cases. And he said, sorry, no. And he's still alive.
That man is the best example you can ever point out.
Well, Honorable Seninde, before we go, talk to us very briefly about these bicycles. 70 billion shillings was paid out. They gave a coconut company. They didn't deliver even a single coconut. They gave a few bicycles.
Now, yes.
And now they voted more money to another company. We don't know whether it's a Kaiser.
And this is exactly what we have been talking about. We talk about these issues. We have raised them, and it's good. We all Ugandans have seen it, and we have even recommended that the people involved should be interdicted. But it's very, very unfortunate that these people, these thugs, took the money and were not even shame. They didn't have shame to at least bring a
coconut. The company deals with coconut, not bicycles. Maybe they should have brought a bag of coconuts.
You can imagine. So it's very, very sad. Anyway, it's unfortunate. Like I have earlier on said, we are now committing more money to this kind of program. So anyway, to wind it up, to sum it up all, it is very sad that a lot of money is being lost left and right. And one thing I want to call upon Ugandans, even those who are listening to us, dear friends, it's not about the party. It is not about the party. Corruption knows no party. I have talked about that. And when somebody says because you have not eaten, that's why you are talking, or because you seem to be against the party, that's why you are talking, I think this is very sad. And if we have so many Ugandans with that kind of belief, then I think we shall move nowhere.
Very briefly, Honorable Mulongo, before we go, the institutions fight corruption. Courts are setting people free, saying they're they're clean, spotless.
No, we need to have evidence. If you do not have supportive evidence, therefore you can lose. Of course, if they are doing that because of corruption or consequential corruption tendencies, that's extremely unfortunate. But I can assure you, if you have a corruption case that is tight enough, I can see a number of courts here in this country are very independent, and they definitely should be sent to the gallows.
Well, I have to go. Thank you very much, Lila Diagas. Very intriguing, interesting debate tonight. Honorable Simon Mulongo, Bubulo East MP, Vice Chairman of the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament. Thank you for coming to Spectrum, sir.
Asante.
Very eloquent man as well, I must say.
Thank you.
Honorable Rosemary Seninde, Wakiso District Woman MP, member of the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, Uganda chapter. You get the fire now when you talk about corruption. I've seen that television clip where you really are somebody else fighting corruption in Parliament. That's impressive. Thank you for coming to Spectrum.
Thank you for hosting us, and greetings to all my people of Wakiso District.
And greetings people of Bubulo East. Namisinda, your district is coming. Thank you so much. Pray for us.
Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English.
You can pay Pay your bills, pay school fees, send cash overseas.